Right now on Indianapolis This Week, your safety in the Circle City. An exclusive look at new crime statistics just out. We're sitting down with the Director of Public Safety and taking a closer look at the trends. And nearly a quarter of a century since a Hoosier teen's death put AIDS in the world's focus. Today we're talking with the mother of Ryan White. Plus, he's the survivor who keeps on giving back. Rupert is here, and how you can help.
From RTD6, the Indy Channel, this is Indianapolis This Week with Rafael Sanchez.
Our new week and many new challenges. We begin with a pending leadership change at one of the state's largest agencies. Indiana Family and Social Services Secretary Deborah Minot submitted her resignation just 2 weeks before a critical deadline in the rollout of the governor's expansion of the Healthy Indiana plan. Governor Pence isn't elaborating on the circumstances of Minot's departure.
As we move into a number of different challenges, more of an implementation phase on a number of policies, we just came to the conclusion that a new direction would be helpful and supportive. We'll be able to work closely with Secretary Minot and her successor when they're named to make sure that there's no disruption of any of the operations or services of FSSA, which is an enormously important agency.
Putting this all in perspective, the state still needs to obtain approval from the federal government for the expansion of the Healthy Indiana plan. The deadline to submit that paperwork is June the 30th. A shift in the nation's capital this week for the Republican Party. House Republicans elected Kevin McCarthy as the majority leader on Thursday. The California Republican claimed the number 2 position and will soon be responsible for the day-to-day running of the chamber and deciding which bills come to the floor for a vote. McCarthy succeeds Eric Cantor, who lost his primary election in an upset earlier this month. McCarthy has served as House Majority Whip since 2011 and will assume his new role in July. And with that House Majority Whip position open, Indiana Congressman Marlett Stutzman threw his name into consideration, but he fell short in voting to Louisiana Congressman Steve Scalise in a tied three-way race. The feeling that Indianapolis is becoming a more violent city is spreading among our community because of this year's rise in homicides. And while those numbers might be up, the total crime rate and the number of shootings, now they're actually down. But there's one disturbing trend that those in public safety are noticing when it comes to homicides. And joining us now to talk about the latest trends and the numbers is the Marion County Director of Public Safety, Troy Riggs, who has served on Mayor Ballard's team since October of 2012. The trends, that being the revolving door and weapons?
Absolutely. Revolving door, people that are getting charged with crimes, getting out quickly, back on our streets committing violence, and then also using the weapons.
So is this a matter of new legislation, new thinking, more resources? How do you attack this?
I think it's basically twofold. First of all, the mayor and I and the police chief will be back to the State House once again asking for mandatory minimum sentencing for those individuals that use a gun in a violent act against someone. That is something we need to do. Chief Hyde is also working with his staff and looking at data and really focusing on individuals that have the propensity to commit crime, they've done it in the past, or to be a victim of a crime and how they work with them. Now, those are short-term goals, Raphael. Long-term, though, we need to continue to have our community conversations, learn from individuals that are living in these areas, and see what we can do long-term socially to try to stem the tide of violence that seems to be hitting a lot of our cities right now.
Will you be welcomed with open arms when you go to the legislature and you ask for more laws to prevent these crimes?
I wouldn't say open arms. They have been receptive and they've made some changes. The mayor and I and the police chief think we need to go a little bit further. We would like to see anyone that uses a weapon in a violent crime to be sentenced to jail, and they would have to do 20 years in prison. Right now we are seeing individuals that are sentenced to 16 years in prison only to be back on our streets committing more violent crimes within 2.5 years.
And how do you strike that balance? Because when you talk about gun ownership and guns, people say, here we go, Second Amendment, right? And so you're not trying to take anyone's gun away, you're trying to take those that are causing the crimes.
That's true. This is not a Second Amendment issue. This is not a debate over which should citizens have weapons or not. This is a discussion about individuals having weapons illegally, meaning that they're convicted felons or they're using the weapons in a crime. We need to take that seriously and use the laws we have in effect to put them in prison for the long term.
Let's take a look at these new exclusive numbers that are just out. This involves the folks that have been rearrested that your department has dealt with. 58 suspects arrested. They were responsible for 180 felony arrests, 22 drug arrests, 20 weapons arrests.
I think that what that tells you is that your police department's doing a good job. unfortunately, we're arresting and rearresting the same people. Now, citizens don't understand that the police department is not in control of how long someone stays in prison. And they're seeing individuals come back after committing a violent crime within a year or two back on the streets. So they fear retribution. Sometimes they take retribution in their own hands. But as a result of that, we are now seeing 60% of all shooting victims will not cooperate with the police. That is a disturbing number.
Look, other exclusive numbers, this has to do with the number of multiple homicide victims you've seen an increase in these numbers, showing that, of course, more of them, more victims. And do you think they're trying to kill the witnesses?
That's what we believe. If you look and you understand that 90% of all of our homicide suspects have a criminal past, we believe that they understand how the judicial system works. They're trying to eliminate potential witnesses. I will say, as it added, that has not worked as of yet. Our clearance rate for homicide is still about 70%. Our homicide detectives continue to do an excellent job.
And when we take a look at these heroin numbers show that you believe that 3% increase in robberies is due to heroin. You're also administering more Narcan than before, up 60%. And in 2013, you saw 110 deaths attributed to heroin. Those are staggering statistics.
They are. And last year we had a pretty big increase in the amount of heroin we take off the street. We're doubling that again this year. We're going to continue to hit heroin hard. We have been on top of the heroin before a lot of major cities. Even though we're making more arrests and we're taking more heroin off the street because of introducing Narcan through EMS and through the police department, we may have fewer deaths this year in Indianapolis, even though we think that heroin's on the rise.
The last 20 seconds, what do you want people to get from all of this? They've seen a lot of numbers in the last 4.5 minutes. If I look at those numbers, I go, what is going on here? Last words for the folks watching?
It's not insurmountable, the issue that we face. Number one, we have to keep people in prison longer. For those individuals that aren't violent offenders, we're okay with releasing them and putting them on some type of community project. So it's a balanced approach. But the thing that we're asking is for everyone to take their responsibility as a citizen and get involved. Roll up your sleeves, give to some social service programs, volunteer for social service programs. That's why you see the Department of Public Safety doing things like raising money for 5Ks and summer jobs, going out and helping people feed some of our children during the summer, and having these community conversations and listening to everything from juveniles and the issues they face, single mothers and the issues they're facing, to the community as a whole. We need to keep that conversation moving. You hosted one of those for us, and we're certainly appreciative.
And we'll continue to hold the conversations here on RTV6. Thank you for the dialogue.
Thank you for having me.
You come back anytime. Next, the insiders, and a new low for the people that you send to Washington. Joining us now at the round table are political insiders, Kip Tu, the Democrat, and Abdul Hakim Shabazz with IndyPolitics.org. We began this program talking about the governor's FSSA secretary. He's kicking her out. What's going on? Is this the wrong time to do that?
Not necessarily the wrong time. I mean, most of what they need to do with the federal government, they are getting done. The question would be who will replace Deb Minot. I'm hearing a couple former directors are in the running, as well as a new individual who actually has an extensive medical background right now, but we should know hopefully early in the week.
A lot of politics behind the scene here that he doesn't want to talk about, wants to give it a positive spin, but the fact of the matter is she was telling everybody they can't get this thing done in time. The governor's only real agenda is making himself look good for primaries in Iowa, for caucuses in Iowa, and so we have what I think is some chaos. He needs to make sure things are going right at home before he can go national, and there's a real chance that it won't.
There's a little bit more to it than that. There were some personnel issues with Deb Minot's tenure at FSSA, so to say that it was a time thing, it was also an issue about getting a memorandum of understanding with the hospitals. The hospitals are not going to do necessarily the buy-in under her leadership, and that's what you need to get your Medicaid.
She was highly regarded. I mean, she worked for Mitch Daniels, and she worked at Eli Lilly and other places, so I don't think it's anything about her skill set. It's about her telling the truth and them not liking the answer.
Let's talk about the city's infrastructure. We're talking about the Rebuild Indy program. The mayor and the Democrats have not been able to see eye to eye on trying to fix roads and sidewalks. Will we get a deal?
Well, the Democrats came out with, I think, is a better plan this week. It spends $60 million less. It evens out the amount of money being spent over the course of the 4 years. It doesn't spike it next year just so the mayor can run for it on re-election, but it spreads the money out. I think it's a much better plan. I think they may come to an agreement.
There are some serious flaws with the Democratic plan. There's a major question as whether they can actually take the money from the downtown TIF district and actually spend that outside of the downtown area, and then there might be a legal issue as whether they can can even touch the TIF district money at all. And for the Democrats to say, no, the mayor wants to float bonds for 20 years, $70 million of their plan is a 20.
Will there be a deal?
Yeah, but that money's not. That's outside of the pothole
Will we get a deal?
Funds. I think in the end, I think we will get a deal. It's funny though, the mayor is losing, I think, really badly in the PR front because he's defensive on cricket. He should leave alone. Instead, he defends cricket.
Is he?
No, the mayor's not losing anything. And like I said, it took the Democrats forever to come up with a plan. The mayor's had a plan on the table for a year. Thank you very much.
Another big controversy is the issue of vouchers. The use of vouchers is up, but a new report suggested that the cost of using the vouchers is also up. Some controversy to the numbers. Will we get an actual look at those numbers and see what's going on in that area?
Well, I think an independent study looked at them and said that they're now costing the state $16 million, which they were not supposed to do, but Democrats had said that it was going to cost $16 million, and they're right. It's going to cost the state more to have two separate education systems. There's no way around that.
When the independent study comes out of the place for people who don't like vouchers, I consider it extremely suspect. And here's a news flash. The vouchers the cost that Indiana spends per pupil is actually more than the vouchers. So the schools actually end up with more money, even though they are losing kids.
A new low for Congress, only 7%. 7% of the people polled in a new poll believe that they have any confidence in Congress. Do you guys have confidence in Congress?
No, I mean, they're not doing anything, so why I'd be stunned if I don't know who those 7% are. They must be just the direct relatives of people that are in Congress.
Those are the same people that Gallup said who think marital affairs are okay. I never thought I'd live to see the day that lawyers like us are more popular than congressmen.
Yeah, it's and I think we're going to have a big surprise in November because that number is an historic low. It's going to have some impact on our November elections. Not knowing what yet, though.
You have 5 seconds. Show off your jacket real quick. And what do you have it? What does it say?
Go USA, 6 o'clock. Beat Portugal.
There you go. The conversation between our insiders continues on Twitter. Check out their Twitter handles and give us your opinion and stay up with Abdul, Laura, Jennifer throughout the week. They'll be cheering on Team USA. Lawmakers met this past week to make some technical corrections to a couple of bills, but it won't be their last trip to Indianapolis this summer. Our TV6 State House reporter Katie Hines tells us the topics that lawmakers will return to study.
The topics are wide-ranging and specific. All of them are issues the House Speaker would like to be studied more in depth ahead of lawmakers taking action. One that generated the most discussion during this past legislative session is a state-funded pre-K pilot program. Other issues range from digital privacy to recycling. Lawmakers are set to analyze tax incentives and review property tax deductions and exemptions. They'll study the state's public pension systems and veterans benefits. The House Speaker says the interim study committees will lay the groundwork for legislation to be discussed, possibly approved during next year's legislative session. In the newsroom, Katie Hines, RTV6.
Thank you, Katie. His health battle opened the eyes of the nation. Next, Ryan White's mom and how her son forced many to face their fears and the challenges still ahead. Ryan White's mom when we return. Acquired immune deficiency syndrome. There was a time in our country when that disease was new and unknown. Today, our knowledge of AIDS is vast. For many, understanding the disease started because of one Indiana boy named Ryan White. In the early 1980s, Ryan contracted AIDS through treatment for his hemophilia. He was expelled from his school, but his fight to live a normal life and return to the classroom was pushed into the national spotlight. After his death, the Indianapolis Children's Museum became the home to Ryan's story. An exhibit with Ryan's actual bedroom belongings is on display on the museum's 3rd floor to help educate people of all ages. I sat down with Ryan's mom, Jeannie White-Ginder, in that exhibit to talk about Ryan's life and his legacy. Jeannie White-Ginder, thank you for joining us at Indianapolis this week. Nearly 25 years since the passing of your son, Ryan White, and the legacy continues.
Yeah, I would never have thought that Ryan's legacy would still be ongoing today because of the Ryan White Care Act and because of the Children's Museum. And I think just because Ryan put a face to this disease to where people could listen. People could actually think that or felt like they knew a person that had AIDS because of Ryan. So I think he opened the eyes to a lot of people to make this a disease, as Ryan always said, and not a dirty word.
What is the challenge in today? When it comes to AIDS, we still talk about it. It's still very much, not only here in our country, but in Africa, is dealing with it in big terms. What is the biggest challenge?
Our failure has been, and our biggest challenge is really preventing the disease, really. I mean, we have done a very poor job of preventing the disease from spreading. As far as educational efforts, I think because of religious and moral issues that have always surrounded the disease, it's been hard to get family members to talk about AIDS. It's been hard to get schools to talk about it, and definitely the churches. The people have not responded to the educational because it's sexual.
You're also focused now on trying to get kids to not bully each other.
Yeah.
Tell me about that effort, because that's also key to what you want people to remember about your son Ryan.
You know, Ryan, he said something on the Phil Donahue show one time. He said, you know, I'm surprised we have dogs nowadays because they're different. It's amazing how you'll accept a dog into your house, but you won't accept someone because of their race, color, religion, or what they have in them. Him meaning AIDS. And so I think it was very important to Ryan. He saw so much discrimination through this disease from people saying, well, you have to be gay to get this disease, or you have to be an IV drug user, or you had to do something bad or wrong, or you wouldn't have got this disease. And to see that, see the comments that people made, and see the kids, how they bully kids nowadays because of how they look or what they have in them. So that was really hard for Ryan to see, and me to see, people picking on your kid. You know, they can pick on mom, but don't pick on my kid.
Hey, listen, don't ever pick on mom.
Yeah.
So when you talk to the kids, what's the one thing you want them to walk away with?
Don't judge somebody unless you get to know them, and you get to be friends with them and see what they're really like. People make rash decisions just by what you look like, or you know, what you have in you, and like Ryan said. So I think it's just to look at a person for who they are, get to know a person first.
So here we are at the Children's Museum. We are in the room that's much like a replica of Ryan's room. Mm-hmm. Is this a comforting place for you?
It is. This is not a replica. This is all his actual things.
So this is the real deal.
This is the real things. This is how Ryan's room actually was. They came out to the house. They even packed every G.I. Joe, wrapped it in tissue paper. The dimensions of his room, this is a little larger than his real room, but it was above a garage, so it was a big room. But yeah, they did an excellent job of, you know, really creating Ryan's room.
So for you, though, is this comforting? And when people come into the room, then, what do you want them to walk away from? What is it about this place that you wanted people to say, you know, I was there at the Ryan White exhibit?
I think I want people to say, you know, he was just like me. I like those same things. You know, I like doing that. He was just a normal kid that wanted to go to school. But if you try to take everything away from you, you'd be surprised how small the things are that you really want to accomplish in life. And, you know, for Ryan, everybody says, you know, well, why did you force him to go to school? And I said, well, I didn't. I said, but one thing, he was calling me at work every day. He was saying, Mom, I'm so bored. Ryan was only supposed to live 3 to 6 months, and 5.5 years. If he had not fought to go back to school, what a waste of a child's life. His life wasn't wasted. He got to go back to school. He got to accomplish things. He got to, you know, for people to look up to him and say, you know, you can be whatever you want to be. You can do whatever you want to do. And look at me, I did.
Judy White-Ginder, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for being a great voice and for being a great mom.
Thanks.
Judy says she continues to work with singer Elton John on AIDS awareness programs and is very thankful for the kindness the late singer Michael Jackson showed her family before and after Ryan's death. After the break, we'll be joined by the tie-dyed wearing survivor who works to better the lives of children in central Indiana. Rupert Bottom is best known for his role on the TV show Survivor, but us locals, we know him for his advocacy for children, and we welcome him to the program. Next week, we're having a big fishing event to help Ruperts Kids. Tell me about that.
Exactly right. At Ace Lake, we're going to be out there. We've got the West Side Bait Shop that has donated a bunch of poles and reels and different stuff, and we're going to have all the food you can eat, all the soda you can drink, and fishing. Fishing contests, fishing for Ruperts Kids. All the fish you can catch are yours. You don't need a fishing license because it's a pay lake. And it's $17.50 to go fishing. 25% of that goes to Ruperts Kids. All the donations for the food, big silent auction, big live auction, all that goes for Ruperts Kids.
How things are going, because you're doing such great work with the kids and the program.
You know, it's been amazing being able to show, like, one of the projects we're doing with the medians in Indianapolis. All the mowing of all the medians that aren't adopted, we do all of that with guys coming out of the detention center, showing how we can take that and teach young men how to be productive members of society, how to have that sense of self-worth and teach work ethic and go out there. And, you know, I have to say, I love it. I go out there and work side by side with them. You'll see me maybe out on the side of the road working the mowers or the weed eaters or just picking up trash, but helping keep our city clean, taking care of ourselves, and showing our young men how you can give back not only to yourself but your community.
And it goes to show that everyone can be involved in some capacity.
Oh my gosh, yes. Rupertskids.org. We have a volunteer meeting once a month where you can come in and meet with me and some of the key members of our volunteer staff. You can sign up as a volunteer. You can come out, get our information online, and we show. Our doors are always open. We encourage people to walk in our doors and see what we're doing. Like we teach our young men, when you're doing what's right, anyone can walk in and see what you're doing.
If you look at his hands, he was tie-dyed.
Yeah!
Let's go fishing with Rupert. I want you to be on my team. I have a feeling that you've done this fishing thing a bit.
Oh my gosh, yes. One of the contests is going to be who can catch a fish bigger than me.
I'm losing control. The ultimate survivor. Good luck. Let's join you next Saturday for Rupert's Kids.
It's going to be a great time.
All right, thanks. Thanks, Rupert. I felt so overdressed. Rupert, next time bring me a tie-dye. Thanks for watching Indianapolis This Week. Drew Smith will have the latest news tonight. Other news at 6. And remember that we are always on the RTV6 app and the IndyChannel.com. Have a great Sunday.